Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to a truly amazing game from the Turkish Super League that's going on now in the beautiful town of Ankara. We have here Rauf Mamedov against Moke Niemann in a crazy 4-night game in the Scotch variation, and in this Turkish Super League the players are playing for their club, and Moke Niemann had, I think, great success so far. He has 4.5 points out of the first 5 rounds, so Hans is really on fire. Gained a couple of rating points, of course, with this great success, has now good opportunities to be one of the best players in the event for sure. So let's dive now into the game. Rauf Mamedov against Moke Niemann. Really a crazy game for sure. So after move e4 by Rauf Mamedov, Hans' response was e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, knight to c3, knight to f6. We have now reached the 4-night game, and now we have the Scotch variation with the move d4. Here we have the Scotch variation accepted with e takes d4, and now after knight to d4, Hans plays, I think, the most aggressive line, bishop to b4, immediately threatening something around the square e4, because the knight on c3 is protecting now the pawn on e4. Rauf Mamedov goes with knight takes c6, b takes c6, and now of course bishop to d3, keeping everything glued together, everything compact around the square e4. Kingside castling also by Rauf, and now d5. Again, a very aggressive move here by Hans. After bishop to d2, we have bishop takes c3. Hans gives up now the bishop pair just in order to grab this pawn on e4, but now there are two choices, I think, that you could play. One is of course knight takes e4, and one is of course d takes e4. If you play here d takes e4, then the game becomes too equalish, I think, because after bishop to f6, queen takes f6, and bishop to e4, okay, you can pick up now this one, but white can continue of course with bishop to c6, and I think we can agree this is a completely drawish position. Nothing spectacular is really going on the board, so that's why in this particular position Hans played the spicier, I would say, continuation. He played now the move knight takes e4. Allowed here, of course, bishop to e4. We have d takes e4, and Hans in this tactical sequence gained a pawn, but we have to also mention that Rauf Mamedov created also here a weakened pawn structure on the queen side for Hans. So again, I would say nothing spectacular is going on. Pretty drawish position. White could go now into this line. Queen takes d8, rook to d8, bishop to e5, going for this pawn. But then after something like this, maybe the issue for white is a little bit that white is losing now the d file. White has lost now the battle on the d file because black has occupied it already. But again, I would dare to say completely drawish position, because we have also opposite colored bishops, and many times when you reach the endgame stage, this should be a draw. So that's why for d takes e4, Rauf Mamedov spiced it up also with queen to e2, tries to keep the queens on the board, tries it to do something at least. We have now rook to e8, which becomes now a theoretical novelty by Moke Niemann. He's at least, again, trying to protect his pawn. In chess history, bishop to f5 has been played, also queen to e7 I see in the database, also bishop to e6 in some lines has been played. So, but again, every of this line I think is not so complicated to play now for both sides. After rook to e8, now we have queen to e3 by Rauf Mamedov, h6 by Hans, and now queen to g3. You see Rauf Mamedov is also trying to do some stuff here on the king side. The bishop's activity and the queen's activity is threatening here already some checkmate. So that's why f6 by Hans has to play it, of course. We have rook from f to e1, attacking now the pawn on e4, and now queen to e7. Here Hans keeps everything glued together. He's protecting so far his extra pawn on the e file. We have queen to f4. Rauf Mamedov continues the pressure here around this pawn. After rook to b8 by Hans, putting more pressure here on the b file. Now Rauf Mamedov, I think, plays his first tiny little inaccuracy in the game. He plays now the move a4, and this isn't good because you don't have time anymore to attack this c6 pawn. Why is the c6 pawn so important? For instance, better choice is to try f3, and then after something like queen to c5 and maybe queen to e3, the issue is now again the game should be equal. You can of course take out this one, you can of course take out this one, you cannot take this one because the rooks are not connected on the e file. What you could try here from black's perspective, maybe to keep somehow the pressure here with your e pawn, but as I mentioned, then you get queen to c4 and you lose the pawn on c6. So white would get the pawn back. That's why this f3 idea I think is much more aggressive, much more complicated also for black to calculate. Very important moment, I think, in the game, the move a4. But again, I would dare to say, even if in this position, if both players play the perfect game, this should still be a draw, because these are opposite color bishops. But after move c5 now that Hans played, we have now finally the move b3. And now, for instance, the move f3 that we have seen previously is not working, because now after e3 and queen to c4, that you could play, the c5 pawn is protected, and black is having still this extra pawn. Even if you try bishop to d2, then we still pass through, and this pawn is marching, really unpleasant to handle. In the later stage of the game, we can of course also protect it maybe with the light square bishop, so not a good continuation anymore here for white. So that's why b3 by Rauf. We have now rook to b6, bishop to a5, hitting the rook, rook to d6, and now after move h3, now Hans goes very aggressively into the game with the move f5. And here black is slightly better, but still complicated to play for both sides. Queen to e3 by Rauf, hitting the pawn, and now I think Hans Moke Niemann shows here really beautiful attacking skills. He plays first of all the move queen to f7, and now Hans is saying, I have here a 4 versus 3 pawn majority. My pieces are very active already, so my rooks can of course reroute somehow here on the king side. My bishop is targeting this side of the board, so here Hans, with this pawn majority and with his 4 attackers that are aiming towards the king side, is preparing really beautiful attacking formation, and allows here even Rauf Mamedov to take the pawn on c5. Why not? Why shouldn't you take? Of course, because you want of course get your pawn back, but now black is having really a beautiful attacking flow. Even if you try something like f4 here, still complicated to play, because of a rook to g6, you're trying maybe to this one, then bishop to b7, very tense position. Even if you try queen to c5, then again this one is working, e3 with an attack against this pawn. Again, a messy position for white, but Rauf took, which is actually not the best way to proceed. But now Hans plays a beautiful f4, and you see now he's storming with his 2 mobile pawns with the rook activity, and allows here even Rauf Mamedov to take another pawn. Who cares about pawns anymore when you have such a great attacking idea here? So after queen to g6, there is of course the huge threat of bishop takes h3, and Rauf Mamedov has now maybe the opportunity to play king to h2, which is still perfectly fine. But again, rook to f6 leads into complications here for white, because again, I would not love to play this game from white's perspective. Look at this, rooks are very active, the bishop will come into the game, f3 is an option, maybe e3, many options here for black, many options how to attack white's position. But here after queen to g6, Rauf Mamedov rushed it with the seemingly good tactic with rook takes e4. Seems of course dangerous, because the queen is a little bit overloaded here to the defense of the rook on e8. But now Hans played a beautiful bishop takes h3, a really great move by Hans, allowing here even rook takes e8. Of course, if you pick up now this piece, then you lose the bishop, and it should be game over here for Hans. So that's why for rook to e8, Hans played the beautiful calm king to h7, and there's nothing that can be done. Look at this, there is a checkmate threat on g2, this rook is protected. What should you do? Even if you try g3 here, from white's perspective, then f takes g3, you're trying maybe to pass through, then we can pick up this one, and actually even if you compete here, we can still get the queen here on g6. You're trying maybe to bring the bishop into the game, but then this one is working. Look at this, rook to c2, rook to g2, g2 is going to happen. So again, a very unpleasant position here for white. After rook to e8 and king to h7 that Hans Niemann played, Rauf Mamedov tried this one, queen to b7, tries of course somehow to hold the position around the square g2, but now a beautiful follow-up by Hans. Rook takes rook to c6, disconnecting now the queen from the defense of the g2 square. G3 by Rauf, we have f takes g3, queen to b8, trying of course also checkmate here on the back rank. But now first of all, of course, g takes f2 comes with the check, you have to react, and now this rook is coming in a beautiful way into the game. from this point on, I think it's game over here for white. For rook to c2, king to e3, queen to g5 check, queen to f4, and now a rook to e2, of course deflecting now the king from the defense of the queen. We have king takes e2, and now queen to f4, bishop to d2, and now after bishop to g4, king to d3, and bishop to f5, we have now king to e2, and after queen to g4. In this position, Rauf Mamedov resigned. So what's the issue? The issue is actually that still you have, of course, two rooks for the queen, which in some other positions should be perfectly fine, but the king is a little bit exposed, and this rook on a1 is simply far away from the action. After comparable moves, king to f2, you can play, look at this, well, black is of course delivering some checks, but in one moment when you come to the f3 square, then there is this problem, double attack against the king and also against the rook. So when you lose the rook, it's of course game over. So that's why in the position, as we mentioned, after queen to g4, Rauf Mamedov resigned. Great tactics, I would say, here by Hans Moke Niemann, although Rauf Mamedov made these mistakes, but you see, Hans calculated everything in a good way, found really the optimal tactical sequence. Great play here with the black pieces against the Scotch variation of the 4 knights game. Okay, as I said, really a great tournament by Hans. He gained really many rating points so far in the event. Still 4 rounds will be played in this Turkish Super League. I hope Hans will have still his success in this tournament. If you want to see some other Hans Niemann games, Magnus Carlsen game, Hikaru Nakamura games, check out our Come to Chess games here on my YouTube chat channel. Here's the link of our playlist. And if you want to see even sharper, more epic, more brutal chess like this, check out our Come to Chess games played by computers, where we analyze some beautiful AI chess games. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos. And what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.